Hello and welcome. Today, 195, 365 days towards racial change. My name is Thomas Nyback. We're here talking about black issues in America. Hoping that you all are doing well, getting along just fine in America, no matter what color or race you find yourself in. This is not a hate channel. But we are talking about black issues specifically. Kind of an authority on that, in my experience, how the world has impacted me, how I express myself in reality. So, uh, so we're on this year-long quest. May go further, I don't know. Coming up into a very busy time. So even getting these last few months out, it's going to be a little stretch, but together we can make it happen. I'm concerned about the mind of Americans, black Americans, uh, their literacy, their understanding, their desire to grow, know how they are situated, oriented in the tapestry of America's socio-economic structure. That just means communities and money, real simple. Where we stand, we're numerically a minority and financially a minority. I think we just dropped to a minority status. Dr. Anderson, I'll introduce you to him a little bit in a minute. He proposes that the United States declare black people, as a special group in need of protected status. It's interesting. We got millions and billions of people clamoring to get into this country, which dilutes and really messes up a lot of things for people in country who are already stressed of all colors, races, but we can whip up billions of dollars with less than a week. Congress can push through stuff because we got so much shock value on the TV. And there are legitimate things going on. I'm even wasting my time here in this forum addressing some of these issues. But that's the way that's the way it is. So the mind of Americans, mind of blacks, mind of whites, their blind spot. It's a blind spot called privilege, entitlement, expectation of favor, a matter of fact way of living and moving through life that does not perceive itself, cannot perceive itself as doing any harm in America or to other groups outside of its own racial color sphere. And that's a concern because if this group is in denial about the damage they're causing and doing in country, then they're not going to change their behavior. Now, granted, that may be for the masses of white people, but I do believe there's a select few who are very conscious about how they move in the American landscape, what they're doing, who they're impacting, who is disadvantaged and stays disadvantaged. That's a very true statement right there. And you're going to have to come up with a good argument to dissuade me from that position. Financial literacy as well among black folks needs to really get better. I'm now finally in a space where I can uh, be conscious of how my dollars are being spent. I'm still confined to spending my dollars in a different way, but I hold on to more now. Now that I understand that groups are not being fair to blacks in business. They love us as consumers. It's like yesterday. I was like downtown in my city, and a lady, and I'm going to let's name it, an Asian woman is selling burritos. So she's talking to this black man. Uh, you'll laugh later on when you see the players in this. So you got an Asian woman selling burritos, and a black man, me, is walking, just around him, just heading to the train, and she quickly, you know, uh, you know, wants to sell me a burrito. She does her little sales thing, and it's interesting. She didn't do that. Like I was surrounded by a white crowd moving in the direction, and she talked to me. She ain't talked to anybody else about buying burritos, right? But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about because you take the same Asian woman, oh, leaning on the tree. She's gonna be very deliberate at avoiding any contact with me, right? But when I got dollars to spend, her and her group are right there, ready to, appropriate this money for their community, their support, and their betterment, right? That's the kind of things that black people need to be aware of with financial literacy. What would I have done if it was a black person? I still would have declined because I wasn't in the mood for a burrito. But I'm just making some points about racism. I wasn't hungry, damn it. But I know that you, woman, oh, and that's another thing, sex is an issue. We don't talk about that much here, but there's some sexual components as far as sexism, you know, the big black man and the tiny Asian woman. I could probably do a year-long series on that. Uh, but if you look up the my post about the au pair, a nice little Chinese girl, kind of fresh from the homeland, hadn't been infected with American hate. I hope she never gets infected with American hate, but that exchange went well, and I posted about that. So I'm trying to be fair across the board. I don't hate all Chinese or Asians. All right. I'm inspired by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. Read 3 of his works. I encourage you to get these. He's written many. He's got a great resume. Uh, Look him up. He's all over YouTube, and you'll get an idea of the information that informs me and us here. A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice. Um, we're in here finishing up our leadership series. Got another day or so to go in that, and then we're going to get into story time, my favorite. Uh, anyway, and Powernomics. You can find it's Dr. Anderson's national plan to empower Black America. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com. Look behind me. You'll see the hashtag #US2 symbol. You'll find Black women conversing, supporting one another there. Very important. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, for a nice experience. More Black folks supporting one another. It's the World Wide Web. If you can't find your voice, your flavor here, then do what I did. Start your own. And see if you can make that year. I haven't got not there yet. I'm just coming up on day 200, but I've got a good fighting chance at it now that it's habitual. And I'd mentioned story time. Yes, in another day or two, we're going to get back into Uncle Tom's Cabin. We're going to get into some very dense chapters. We've slowed down we breezed over the introductory framework of Harriet Beecher Stowe's book. Now we're getting into, I think, a lot of sections that inform uh, theater back then, even culture today. So we've slowed down a bit on, we've not slowed down on our pace, we've just slowed down on parsing the chapters because we want to see what Harriet's illustrating, what she's trying to communicate. I'm doing my best to kind of channel her spirit out of this text, and I believe I'm on point. We can call her up, we can get a check on that, but I think I'm um, sharing her mind. I hope I'm not going to find out till I cross over, so we'll see. Day 195. Competition strategies is the title. And these are very short sections in Black Labor, White Wealth, and he's giving a lot of recommendations and stuff. It's not pure strategy as Powernomics, and it's not pure information like Black History Reader. Black Labor, White Wealth is kind of a combination of those two books. So looking at leadership, and it's important. We need leaders. We need competent people, people that are going to be respected. I told you, some of my situation at my job. Uh, it's a little uncomfortable. I've taken a stand and all that, but I tell you what, I'm respected. I feel like, I was respected as a friend and Mr. Jokes and make you smile. That's not the worst thing in the world. Uh, but now, um, the relationship has gone through some change, and I think it's a good thing that it has. So, this is something I need to live with. Excuse me, post nasal drip there. Staying in a situation that's uncomfortable, unspecified amount of time. You know, I got roof to keep overhead. I got to keep clothes, fed. You know, but what the information we've been talking about here for almost 200 days is starting to bear out. A seed has gone in. I mean, I've lived this all my life, but now I'm starting to understand the players, the position, history, all this stuff is coming into play, and I'm having my moment, an informed moment, and I can bet you that power does not like that, because power doesn't want to share power. I was just musing. I was up around midnight. Some of my favorite old shows from when I was my preteen years are on at that time. I like to check in and see the acting and stuff, but don't let me digress. But I was thinking about power, and we talk about white power. Power, the color of power just happens to be white. Okay, so it's not hate. It's you have a black box, and the box falls on your head, and you cuss. You cuss the black box. The box just happened to be black. Power in America is generally white. And so this power doesn't want to share power and doesn't want competition. I was just musing on this. And, if it just stomp you and crush you out of the way, so be it. That may be, some of the substance of such a violent backlash, physically violent backlash against black people when they appear offensive or a threat to the system. You know, and the black man's running away from a white officer, but the white officer, something, the geist, the consciousness of the nation is just has some murderous intent on the black skin, and it's very troubling, disturbing. And the officer needs to shoot the man down in the back, running away. So that's what happens. I see it even here. Uh, the white folks who run this place. I'm very much isolated and independent, but I got a neighbor that's a real jackass. Can't sing, can't play, makes a lot of noise. It's very disturbing. You know, when I'm making videos, he ramps up his noise and stuff. Just just a jackass. Uh, but I'm a musician, so he gets a little pass. Can't push it too much. It's our world, not my world. White power is going to do everything so that there's no competition in the field at all. One of my favorite movies is called Fury. Brad Pitt as a tank commander, and one of the opening scenes is they are advancing on this German position. It's World War II, and this German's trying to get out of his foxhole there, trench. Brad Pitt's like, he curses that guy and he says, "Run his ass over, slap." That's white power. Just crush you out of the way, out of existence. How dare you even exist? There's some of the feelings I got. I don't know how we got into that discussion. All right, day 195. We're on recommendation point 5 in our last few minutes. And he's talking about strategies to compete. And this is this is probably what big chunk of this book, we'll get into this book later, is about. That's because we don't want the symbols of the 60s. We don't want you to write laws that we hope that the white establishment follows about discrimination and things like that. You need concrete, tangible things that show we are participating and having our equal competitive moment in America. Uh, my big thing is land ownership. Yeah, we got all the rest. We'll get a job. We'll get enough to sustain uh, day to day, week to week, just like the slaves did. But you give us some land ownership, then we put rental properties on there. Then we create our communities and evict and include, right where we start to exercise those same economic and social advantages of power, and then I'll be satisfied. Before I leave the earth, please, take me to where black folks are in ownership and control, and it's a clean space, absent of drug use, dysfunction, loud music, peaceful, place where you can, where your kids can go out at night, and you don't lock your car doors. You know, uh, I won't go so far as not locking your doors. That's a stretch, but I've been in communities where people don't lock their doors. You walk right in. You know. Canada's big for that. Not so much United States, but in the United States, I've been in communities where people don't lock their doors. It's just that peaceful, and there's that much trust. That'd be icing on the cake if we can get black folks to that point. But to do that, we need cash flow. We need to be competitive. We need to be, working our services and our products must gather, we must enjoy those same rights and privileges as these other groups, right? Now, these other groups, they're not explicit about waving their banner and their flags, but they got their flags, their banners. Um, they are segregated along a language line. That's a barrier. Their language, stuff like that. But they don't explicitly say, what their agenda is. And black folks don't have to do that either. We should just live. We should just have our hiring practices. Let somebody say we've discriminated or let them prove it. Let them waste their legal energy and resources trying to prove it. You Shoot, if it was that easy to prove, I'd probably be president of the United States by now. If I can call age, color, and sex discrimination in the workplace. I've definitely experienced it, but I can't prove it. I don't have the resources, and you practically have to get something in writing or an eyewitness of someone saying something or an outright confession to make that happen. But our group is going to need to be competitive, in the in economics, uh, get that cash flow going, so we as a people and as an entity can start interacting on a competitive level, eye to eye, out of the service sector, building our own businesses, having our own employees. Let's review vertical integration and ethno-aggregation. Ethno-aggregation is simply keeping our resources, our determination within our racial group. In this case, racial group, ethno, can go towards a lot of things. But keeping it in our group, hopefully black, you know. And vertical integration is controlling the processes of a product or service from raw materials or an ideal up to bringing it to market and selling it. All that happens within the group. If we are, let's say we're jewelers, hey, let's get into the jewelry business, not a pawn shop. Right? Let's not be a pawn shop, but a legitimate jewelry business, handling gold, diamonds, platinum, right? So we own the mines in Africa. That material gets refined and processed. It comes, we ship it on our boats, right? It lands on our pier, our dock. It's shipped on our trucks, and it comes to our warehouse, and it's our jewelry experts cut, polish, create. You know, our marketing team says this is this year's offering, and our retail outlets sell. That's vertical integration. You know, it's always our process of that that's going on. So we want to be competitive at domestic, international markets. Dr. Anderson, even himself, tried to start a fish business years ago in Detroit. It fell through. Well, some of the reasons are probably obvious. One thing we can say is the black community probably didn't step up. I never heard about it. Probably, but the black community there probably didn't step up on it. And I think, I guess when people got wind of it, all these other groups start clamoring in. That's another problem too. With that, but he had a very elaborate plan. Um, so much of that falls through the cracks and by the wayside when it comes to getting blacks uh, to a point of autonomous rule in life here in America. I propose, he says we need to have measurable goals and timelines, yes, but I say let's not like run the race as though we're crossing hurdles all fast. Okay, we got this hurdle, keep going. I'm finding in my workplace I got this one little victory. Well, we got to let that stew, let it have its time. I was trying to grow a sunflower, but I didn't plant it deep enough. It shot up, and I watered it. It fell down, and I tried to correct it, and it died. We don't want that. Let's get a victory. Remember, grassroots. Let's you know, let's make that move and never go backwards. You know, make a move so strong that it withstands the storm. You know, that's going to be something built on the rock. That takes time, and you gotta let it settle in, right? Like the best wine. It's not your Ripple that you get off the shelf. It's something that's stewed over decades. Then you're starting to approach something of value, something you don't even want to drink. It's so valuable. That's my 2 cents on goals and timetables. Public policy template. We talked about a public policy. We need a constitution. We need some laws to say, if you're part of this organization, then based on this, without interpretation, this is a black and white guidelines for how we want this structured. Then we move forward, so much like the Constitution, a creed, or some agreed things like, boy, how do you do that? And I mean, the founding fathers found a way, and look what they got. They rule the world. So it's doing something right when you write down the rules of the game. You'll see in the description the rules of the game. Very important. It'll simplify decision making as well. That's Dr. Anderson's point. It's not going to be anything esoteric and anything that's going to take a long time. With a public policy, then when it comes to our unifying goal, Leadership Institute, public policy, use of technology, it's going to speed up a lot of things. It's going to be the physics of how, the science of how this competitive organization group exists, this entity exists in the world. Final thoughts, I forget what I wrote. I had two important ones, but the one I want to bring out, though, is to beware. I was on the bus, just on the mall. When I'm out in public, I get all these opportunities. I'm looking through eyes of a man who's racially awake now. So much of my experience has, some racial input to it. So on that note, like, I'm looking around at the world. I'm on the bus in my city. And so, I'm walking to get on the bus, and I accidentally stepped on the back of Black Man's Hill, something that happens every day, normal experience. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry," but he came back at me, in a way to reject my apology, and I felt all kinds of veiled threats as a black man. And so now I go, "Hey, I've got issues with black people. Let's clear the air here. You know, all black people are not on board with what I'm about and what I believe and all this stuff. So this is a inner city guy, kind of well built. Here we go. You know, I just been pushing around uh, 60, 50, 60, 70 pound boxes all night long. So I'm ready myself, and it's hot too. So here we go. So we have our little back and forth, back and forth. He's like, when he puts up the hand. You know, if you know how black people interact, they are at cross purposes with one another. You know what it looks like. My words, his hand. I say, yeah, it's too hot. Yeah, you know, like if you want to rumble, if you want to get down like that, I'm ready. I'm in the rare moments when I'm ready. I'm already frustrated at work and everything. All right, let me get to the point. Not every black person is with that, and I'm not saying he's like he would be an enemy just because we're at cross purposes over a stepped on shoe, but it's the attitude. It's the flavor of a black individual. Uh, you got to choose. You have an opportunity to choose who you want to fellowship with. And I don't see don't see myself spending time with a person who can't be apologized to for having their shoes stepped on and be in part in peace. Um, that's a big challenge uh, to the project, to what I feel black people who may be who may resonate with this message feel that's a problem with what they might want to do. It's a problem with what I want to do. So just a public disclaimer: you're going to find me. I'm not down with every black person just because they're black. I understand the situations, the dysfunction, where they're coming from, but you got to be of a certain mindset, a certain piece of humility, understanding, um, even an academic level in some cases, to be on board with a message, so that if you get your shoes stepped on and the man apologizes sincerely, then it's a dead deal. But if it's an opportunity to go in the hood and be gangster, I can't have any fellowship with you. I'm Thomas Nyback. That's day 195 out of the way. 365 days towards racial change. I can't wait till story time comes around. I'm anxious. I want to get to story time. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye-bye.